make some sense of it all, but I can see it makes no sense at all. Is it cool to go to sleep on the floor? 'Cause I don't think that I can take anymore. Clowns to the left of me, jokers to the right. Here I am, stuck in the middle with you.
Good morning, everyone. Lots going on as usual. Today is Sunday, March 1st, 2026. In like a lion, out like a lamb, excuse me. And the India trade deal means more foreign students, but specifically from India. So, good, great job, Mark Carney. What? So yeah, they're announcing this big new trade deal, and it's going to be bringing in foreign students. I've got that for you later in the show. King Charles has a high-profile Ramadan meal. So it's not really dinner; it's like breakfast, kind of ish. So yeah, weird. I mean, weird. It's weird because England used to be a Christian country, and now it seems like it's not. And it seems like Charles is enthusiastically embracing the new Islamic overlords, right? So pretty wild stuff going on there. Jim Carrey was replaced. I've got side-by-side pictures. You decide, and it does look weird. His eyes look different. And is it like cosmetic surgery or what's going on there? Iran responses from around the world. We've got some United Nations people responding. We've got some Canadian people responding, some NDP people responding. It's kind of funny. And everybody, well, there's some people who are very happy. A lot of it are Iranians themselves, or Persians, if you will. And a lot of, well, maybe, as I said, I remember the invasion of Iraq and the toppling of Saddam Hussein, and we got the same story then too. Oh, they're welcoming their freedom saviors and things like that. And then years later, it was a quagmire, and they had a hard time getting out of it, right? And so I don't know. And the Iran war, is it a war? Or will there be boots on the ground? Or did they just decapitate the mullahs who are running Iran and hope that the people rise up and take their government? That seems like a rumor anyway, and I'll show you. So there's lots to get to. Let's get to it. First, Gad Saad says the Iranian Revolutionary Guard consists of roughly 125,000 individuals. They control Iran, which has a population of 90 million people. In other words, 0.14% of the country's population controls the entire nation. The Iranians have been prisoners to that regime for 47 years. I state this to remind people that the greatest threat to a nation's fabric is demography. In the past, the religious ideology that animated the Middle East was minuscule in the West. Today, its number of adherents, many peaceful, many not, is astoundingly greater than 0.14%. If Western leaders, including Donald Trump, do not wake up to this reality, the West will be eviscerated. It will take many years to do so, but you must have the imagination to extrapolate. Save this post. I hope I'm wrong, he says. And he's not wrong. And look at just what's happening in Canada, what's happening in Dearborn, Michigan, and all sorts of other places. It's very concerning. And there doesn't seem to be a brake pedal anywhere, right? If the trolley problem could hit both people or all the people, it would do that. And that's what we're on track. We're going to go over the one side, and then we're going to back up and then go over the other side because they hate us. And the trolley's full of the new people that they want to populate our cities with. Wall Street Mav says, Trump had a meeting. This is plausible to me, but we'll see how things roll out. Wall Street Mav says, Trump had a meeting with all his generals and asked, what if we just killed them all and we don't actually invade? What happens then? Nobody had a really good answer for why that wouldn't work. No, not enough pushback? All right, we're going to do it. Let's do it. White House says this is a Trump Truth Social post, but they're reposting it. I'll read it in a second, but the White House is posting Trump Truth Social on X, right? So it's meta posting here. And this is lifted from Truth Social, 4:37 p.m. on February 26th, it says. 2/25/26. No, February 25th. Khomeini, one of the most evil people in history, is dead. This is not only justice for the people of Iran, but for all great Americans and those people from many countries throughout the world that have been killed or mutilated by Khomeini and his gang of bloodthirsty thugs. He was unable to avoid our intelligence and highly sophisticated tracking systems, and working closely with Israel, there was not a thing he or the other leaders that have been killed along with him could do. This is the single greatest chance for the Iranian people to take back their country. We are hearing that many of the IRGC, military, and other security and police forces no longer want to fight and are looking for immunity from us. As I said last night, now they can have immunity. Later they can only get death. Hopefully the IRGC and police will peacefully merge with the Iranian patriots and work together as a unit to bring back the country to the greatness it deserves. The process should soon be starting, in that not only the death of Khomeini, but the country has been, in only one day, very much destroyed and even obliterated. The heavy and pinpoint bombing, however, will continue uninterrupted throughout the week, or as long as necessary, to achieve our objective of peace throughout the Middle East and indeed the world. So, peace through strength, peace through war. Oh, that would have been a good title. Darn, missed opportunities. Ryan says, in Canada, we run pictures and news articles about people mourning Khomeini. So, just to virtue signal against Donald Trump, I feel sometimes that's what we're doing. Just, Trump's for it, we've got to be against it. So here's, I believe it just says news. Oh, this might be fake. I don't know. It might be fake. I would believe it. News World. It doesn't say CBC World. Be skeptical. Ryan says it's CBC. This is the image CBC chose for the headline. Maybe take it with a grain of salt. Might be AI. We're gonna keep going on. Cat Canada says, here's Mark Carney, and he's talking about this, and he stands with the Iranian people against the mullahs, and he stands with the United States. Surprising, because I didn't think Mark Carney could support Trump in anything. So here's Mark Carney responding to Trump's military action in Iran.
Canada's position on the developments in the Middle East remains clear. The Islamic Republic of Iran is the principal source of instability and terror throughout the Middle East. It has one of the world's worst human rights records and must never be allowed to obtain or develop nuclear weapons. Canada and our international partners have called consistently upon the Iranian regime to end its nuclear program, including at the G7 summit in Kananaskis and with the United Nations reimposition of sanctions this past September. We've sanctioned over 250 Iranian entities. We've listed the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps as a terrorist entity. And despite numerous diplomatic efforts, Iran has neither fully dismantled its nuclear program, halted all enrichment activities, nor ended its support for regional terrorist proxy groups. Canada stands with the Iranian people in their long and courageous struggle against this oppressive regime, and we reaffirm Israel's right to defend itself. Canada supports the United States acting to prevent Iran from obtaining a nuclear weapon and to prevent its regime from further threatening international peace and security. And the Canadian government urges the protection of all civilians in this conflict going forward.
Going forward. Weird. Not that I didn't expect Mark Carney to come out that way. And Harper was a big Israel cheerleader, and Canada was positioned as a, quote, ally of Israel. And the demographics have shifted, and so the messaging in the government has shifted, but still pretending to be a close ally of Israel while at the same time supporting Muslims and all of that other stuff. It seems conflicting, and indeed the messaging around elections and all sorts of other stuff changes. So it's, again, I wish we didn't have all of these complicating factors being imported, because it doesn't make sense to complicate things that way. It just splits the public. Wall Street Apes, carrying on. Wall Street Ape says, Alex Jones says there's a high probability that Iran will now activate terrorist sleeper cells in the United States. Customs and Border Protection confirms Biden admin did not vet illegals from Iran, even though they were supposed to have special vetting processes. Instead, Democrats just released them back into America. In Canada, there's supposed to be a lot of high-ranking IRGC people who are just living, quote, a normal life in Canada. If they're part of sleeper cells that at some point get activated, that wouldn't be very good. That wouldn't be very good. Feels a little, exposed, vulnerable, right? And so anyway, what's the government doing? Absolutely nothing. So what are we going to do? Import more people from the Middle East. And don't question it, you bigot. So yeah, yikes. Because that's the messaging. And I wish it wasn't, again, but it very clearly is. Dennis says China buys nearly 90% of Iran's oil through a dark fleet of tankers. Today's strikes and the push for regime change threaten to choke this pipeline. If the United States enforces a total blockade, Beijing loses its cheap discounted energy source and must pivot to more expensive market rate crude. And so that puts pressure on China. And I do believe that this action is a multi-pronged effort. One, cuts off the head of the mullahs, who too sell their oil to China at a discount. And so you are removing this saber-rattling boogeyman from the world stage, while at the same time undermining your biggest world competitor and making their cheap oil back to world prices again. So you have to compete on the world stage rather than having your little back garden with oil production in Iran and Venezuela and et cetera, because communism doesn't work without other people's money being injected to make it work. Here's Dennis. He says China buys nearly 90% of Iran's oil through a dark fleet of tankers. Today's strikes and the push for regime change threaten to choke this pipeline. If the United States enforces a total blockade, Beijing loses its cheap discounted energy source and must pivot to more expensive market rate crude. Did I just say that? I think I just said that. Sorry, everybody. But it's important. Sprinter Press says Iran just announced that they're going to launch a very strong attack today, stronger than ever before. And then in all caps, Trump says, however, they'd better not do it, because if they do, we'll hit them with a force that no one has ever seen before. Thank you for your attention to this matter in regular text. So there you go. Or if Iran wants to posture, Donald Trump will push multiple buttons, and you don't want him pushing multiple buttons. Brian Lilly is responding to the Secretary General of the United Nations. Gutierrez says, I condemn today's military escalation in the Middle East, the use of force by the United States and Israel against Iran, and the subsequent retaliation by Iran across the region undermine international peace and security. All member states must respect their obligations under international law. What is this international law? Where was the international law when the mullahs took over Iran? Because you can't really do that, but they did, and nobody said anything about it, really. Or did they? I was not born yet in 1979, so it was just the way it was when I came online fully. Anyway, back to this. The Charter clearly prohibits the threat of the use of force against the territorial integrity or political independence of any state, or in any other manner inconsistent with the purposes of the United Nations. So they've hamstrung themselves to the point where terrorists have just taken over whole countries, and people hand-wring over what we're going to do about those terrorists because we've got to treat them with respect and stuff. It seems weird. It seems like totally ineffective, right? Why is anybody sending money to this totally ineffective body? I call for an immediate cessation of hostilities and de-escalation. Failing to do so risks a wider regional conflict with grave consequences for civilians and regional stability. I strongly encourage all parties to return immediately to the negotiating table. I reiterate that there is no viable alternative to the peaceful settlement of international disputes in full accordance with international law. What international law? Including the United Nations Charter. The Charter provides the foundation for the maintenance of international peace and security. And they haven't been able to accomplish that since they've been since they've come together, since they've been established as the United Nations. They have not been able to deliver this foundation for the maintenance of international peace and security. We don't have international peace and security. We had forever wars all over the place for oil and ridiculous other things. And the United Nations was complicit. Probably. It feels like they were complicit. Wall Street Mav says President Trump just kidnapped the leader of Venezuela in one night. Then he decapitated the top 40 leaders of Iran in one night. Europeans and the rest of the world cannot wrap their heads around what Donald Trump is doing. Their decades of diplomatic games were just wiped out. So there's no boogeyman to be fearful of. And so these, strongly worded letters and red lines and no-fly zones and this and that, not that it was all fake, but you should go and deal with the problem directly, rather than this diplomatic nonsense the terrorists and the people who are running those governments don't respect, and or they're connected directly to the government who's making the negotiations. We'll send you $6 billion. Great. We'll stop enriching nuclear things. Great. And then the $6 billion gets laundered through Iran and then back to some Democrats and stuff, right? Like everybody's using this to enrich themselves, and the American people are being played in a big pantomime of war games. It's wild. And that's plausible. Very plausible. Wall Street Mav says Trump did Venezuela in January. Iran in February. Cuba looks likely for March. We'll get there in a sec. When do we liberate Canada? Britain, France, and Germany. We might even have time for Australia by the end of the year. I don't think that's too far off, really. And not to say that Trump's going to come riding in on a white horse or anything like that. But if the United States wanted to, they could put a lot of pressure on the regime that's running things at this point in time, I think. Robbie says President Trump on Friday said the U.S. may embark on a friendly takeover of Cuba. They use all those little boats to come here, so we're going to go there. We're just going to go there and meet and greet and talk to them. He says the Secretary of State Marco Rubio is having talks with the communist authorities on the island. The Cuban government is talking with us. They're in a big deal of trouble, as you know. They have no money. They have no anything right now, but they're talking to us right now. So that's interesting, if you ask me, I think. Table Salt says, I'm now 100% confident that the USA could take Canada in 2 hours. I have no doubt at this point in time. Yeah. Yep. Syke says, think of it. Eastern Canada doesn't have a single pipeline to Alberta. The States just has to embargo Quebec's dictator tankers and shut off the U.S. pipelines to Ontario. Canada could beg Alberta to send them energy and it wouldn't matter. They blocked every avenue of paid pipelines to them over the years. Carney is declaring the NWO in opposition to America is enough to justify it. I don't know, but maybe. Maybe. We'll see. Maybe Trump will have a rabbit to pull out of his hat for Canada too. We'll see. But again, if Trump is successful, and it's not a foregone conclusion that he is successful against the domestic enemy in the United States or the deep state or the swamp being drained or anything like that. It hasn't been completed yet, in my opinion. And so if he's successful, then that is an indication that there's a chance for us. But if he is not successful, then goodness me, I don't know what to do, but it seems like a conflict will come to fruition. Ted Cruz is trolling Kamala Harris. Kamala Harris says Donald Trump is dragging the United States into a war the American people do not want. Let me be clear, I am opposed to a regime change war in Iran and our troops being put in harm's way for the sake of Trump's war of choice. Read my full statement. And Ted Cruz says your administration gave over $100 billion to the Ayatollah who kept killing Americans. We know you're sad that your friend isn't with us anymore. So kind of fun. Ted Cruz is being rumored for the Supreme Court as a Trump pick for the Supreme Court. Burgess Group says the U.S. and Israel decapitated the Iranian regime, and our lot in England didn't help because of international law. Where was international law when the Ayatollah slaughtered 30,000 protesters or sponsored the October 7th attacks? Ministers might as well believe in the tooth fairy. So international law is useless. Here is this guy, and I don't know that we're going to watch it because we've already gone 17 minutes. We're not going to watch it. But Concerned Citizen says this guy's asked. He's the defense secretary of the United Kingdom, and he's asked, "Do you back what the Americans have done and Israelis have done?" And he says, "Do you believe this action was within international law?" And he says, "Our allies, Canada, Australia, have backed what America has done. Why doesn't the United Kingdom?" And this guy just doesn't answer. He dodges and weaves and tap dances around, and he says, we're gonna look after the interests of Brits. And that's as rich as saying we're gonna protect children, right? While we mutilate their sex organs. Nope, you're not protecting kids, and claiming to be protecting kids while exposing them to predators is dangerous and wrong, and you shouldn't do that. David is responding to Keir Starmer. So there's a Cobra meeting this morning. Breaking news, after the Cobra meeting, Keir is sending 4 more Spitfires and 2 bombers and a Vera Lynn recording to assist our allies. Also opening more free breakfast clubs, right? So Keir Starmer is being widely panned for not engaging and not doing anything with this whole thing. And that's interesting, right? The powers that be, the people who are supposed to be with the United Nations keeping law and order and peace around the world, are sitting on their hands while Trump is coming in and decapitating the heads of the snakes who have been infesting the place because these guys refuse to act. Weird, right? And we're all told that Trump's the bad guy. Is Trump the bad guy? Is this an Iranian war or is this something else? It doesn't seem like it doesn't seem like the United States is building up troops, sending anybody in, taking control of cities. There's nothing like that happening. So maybe it's the same as Venezuela because people were losing their mind then. Oh, regime change war in Venezuela. Didn't happen, right? And what's going to happen now? Iranian oil sold by the United States, right? Made close to or in partnership with the United States. Stamp it. So there you go. Heather McPherson, NDP, says today's attack on Iran by the United States and Israel is a serious violation of international law. The repressive Iranian regime is a dictatorship that murders and brutalizes the Iranian people, but an illegal and unjust war driven by Trump and Netanyahu will bring more civilian deaths and regional chaos. And Mark Nixon says there's something seriously wrong with the NDP. Send them help. And Gray Matter Podcast says there's no such thing as international law. I agree. I don't think there is a thing as an international law. If the Brits don't like Canada Poly, they can't put me in Belmarsh for it, right? Like, yes, there are rape gangs, and you can't do a damn thing about it, right? And so, I mean, they could call Mark Carney and he could throw me in a Canadian gulag, maybe, but it would be difficult. So international law, not so much. Ross is responding to this. China demands the United States and Israel immediately stop military operations against Iran. You need to stop, please. I don't want you to take my oil. Ross says, Mark, your strategic partner for multilateralism and the New World Order, disagrees with you supporting the U.S. So, Mark Carney, what are you going to tell them? So, ruh-roh. China and Canada at odds. Maybe the canola shipment is at risk this year. Here's China Pulse, and this guy says, the United States is a war addict. Throughout its 240-year history, it has been at war for all but 16 years. The U.S. has over 800 overseas military bases in over 80 countries and regions. The United States is the main cause of international disorder, global turbulence, and regional instability. So they're trying to take down to the United States, and they're telling us falsehoods about the United States. Very interesting. Iran's response, and then I've got to say goodbye to the stream. They're sending suicide drones to bomb buildings, and this is a famous building, and I don't know the name of it, but it's in here, the Burj Khalifa. So it's a famous building, and so this drone was heading towards the Burj Khalifa, and it got intercepted before it could explode. But you can see it, right? It's floating towards this. I saw other buildings. I think I've got a video for you of buildings being blown up with these things, and that's pretty wild, right? You don't want to be there, and so it blows, away from the building, right? But it's supposed to go into the building and explode, and then hopefully hit gas and other things, causing other problems for the building. And it really would cause problems for the building. Iran keeps hammering the United States bases in Qatar. 2 impacts right now at Al Udeid Air Base in Qatar, or Qatar. And I guess I don't have the video of the building. I'm sorry, I don't have a video of the building. They're attacking the Kuwaiti airport. So Iranian drones struck the Kuwaiti airport, and there's video of that. And the Strait of Hormuz is being blockaded by Iran as well. Movement of ships in the Strait of Hormuz has been halted by Iran. So Cassandra said, I hope everyone got gas yesterday. And I thought that was kind of funny. I did get gas yesterday because I knew what was going on. And what else? So Iran has also has unleashed a bunch of attacks against the United States bases. This is, again, something we're not going to watch. It's 2 minutes. Well, maybe we'll watch it. We've got a minute. For those of you who were not around in 1979, here's how it all started when the radical mullahs took over the Iranian people and took hostages. Everybody was like, oh, but international law.